Another day, another list, and this time we're talking about Lianorn, the unit that got the trial deck before set 6, support in set 6, and that I've been secretly crushing on this entire time. So, Lianorn is very simple with a rather simple game plan. This is the trial deck version here, but there is, of course, the upgraded triple rare version, which has basically the same main ability here, which says when this unit attacks, you may Soul Blast 1 and discard a card from your hand, and boost this unit with all your back row standing units with boost. If boosted this unit with 3 or more units, this unit gets drive +1 until the end of the battle, and at the end of that battle, you choose 2 of your back row rear guards and stand them. So, you basically want to get 3, ideally grade 1s, but just anything that can boost in the back row, have them boost Lianorn for a massive triple drive, huge Vanguard swing, and then you can stand those boosters up again and swing with your rear guards. So it's a pretty simple deck in concept. However, this is pretty difficult to actually pull off, considering that much like Magnolia before her, Lianorn has a very huge problem maintaining a board. She doesn't inherently do anything that allows her to have a board. Her ride line kind of helps with that a little bit, but it also uses up all of her soul, which she needs every single turn in order to do anything. But I've managed to find a list that works and actually lets this happen more often than not. A couple of important things to note is that typically when you think of Lianorn, what you immediately want to do is think, alright, I need to make humongous boosters and then swing in with that. When you actually don't even need to hit that big of a number, honestly. The triple drive itself is pretty threatening, especially coming from a Vanguard. That's why grade 4s are so good. But also, as long as you can boost with 3 things, you'll be fine. I mean, at the end of the day, if you boost with just 3 basic grade 1s with 8k attack, it's still boosting for a whopping 24k. That combined with Lianorn's already base 13 makes you swing in for 37, which is a really good number to hit. For example, in order for your opponent to guard that swing, they'd have to play down at least some sort of trigger. Let's say they guard with a critical trigger, but that'll only bring them up to 28. So they have to play, at minimum, another trigger, which will bring them up to 43. But even then, you're at 37. With triple drive, a single trigger that you check will break through that, and not only make your opponent take 1 damage, but also making them waste 2 cards. So they would have to even use more cards to even guard her. And if they decide, alright, well, I'm just going to take this anyways, then they have the capability of getting hit with 4 damage, because you might be able to check crits. So it's not so much about how big the number is, but how you end up using it. So we'll say one quick thing before we actually get started. This list is inspired by the Milte list for set 7. I will say this, at least I did sort of arrive at very similar conclusions after testing Lianorn. I had been testing Lianorn for a long while, and I was given the list, or the article online, and I read through it. I'll have it in the description down below. It's very, very good read, but it kind of goes over a lot of the sort of things that make Lianorn good, what make her not so great, you know, her weakness, how to cover them, and so on and so forth. And that sort of revolves around how the deck is built to sort of cover that. And I have reached most of those same conclusions myself. I even have timestamps. I don't want to make it sound like I'm just ripping off someone's list, but you know, here's me coming up with a similar list at this time, and then here's me being told about the article at this time. But nonetheless, his list is for set 7, so I've kind of adopted that for set 6. So first, let's go over the ride line here. Rather than using the Lianorn ride line here, we're actually going to be using the Rora ride line. So we've got Bioroid Youth Rora, Awakening from Slumber Rora, and the World 3000 Years Later Rora. In the Milte article, they want you to use the Lianorn ride line just because it gives you, quick board presence. And the soul isn't so much of an issue because the grade 1 for Lianorn calls itself out, and then the grade 2 asks you to soul blast out to call back a grade 1 from your drop. But in set 7, they have a lot more easier ways to fill up their souls. In set 6, we don't really have that. So instead, I'm using the Aurora ride line here because it allows us to get out free cards. So the grade 1 from the ride line says when this unit is placed by riding on Bioroid Youth Aurora, you can call up to 1 plaque token to your back row rearguard center. So you have to play the grade 0 for this. You can't trick people out and play the Zorga starter or anything like that. You're forced to play the grade 0, but this gives you a token on turn 1. Going first, this means nothing for you. Going second, it does give you a nice hefty swing at 13k, makes it a little bit difficult for your opponent to guard. Most of the 10k shields players have aren't available until turn 3, and that means they don't have to actually give up a trigger or guard with 2 of their units, which they probably will not want to do. And you can very easily break through that if if they just give you 2 units or something like that, you can just check a trigger and break over that. The grade 2 Aurora of the ride line is really where it's at. So this says when this is placed on the rearguard circle, you can retire one of your rearguards to call up to 2 plant tokens to rearguard circle. These plant tokens are just 5k, grade 0s with a boost. Now, the reason this is so important is because it gives you early access to 2 boosters, which means on your Lianorn turn, you just have to play 1 more booster and you already meet the condition. It also means you don't have to play cards out in hand. There's a lot of decks, especially the better ones, that can very easily remove your boosters from the field, or require you to maybe guard with them earlier, or whatever the case may be, and they don't need to have as many cards on board as you do. You basically need a full board, and you have to maintain that full board. So getting cards for free, for literally practically no cost, and summoning them out of nothing is very good. The other thing you can do with this is it allows you to have a generally a decent aggressive grade 2 turn. In general, this is more effective in something like Magnolia, because you can play down more grade 2s and other stuff and swing in and put in a lot of pressure on grade 2. In this list specifically, we don't have any of that, and there's a lot of things that we can't use until grade 3. So unfortunately, you can kind of just use those tokens to just stick around. Depending on the matchup, you can either make a column of 2 tokens and swing in for 2 10k attacks, or you can boost Aurora, make him 15, and just have the other booster behind there. But nonetheless, that is sort of the purpose of the ride line, is to just give you those boosters that you can use. And plus, it's a ride line that actually gives you value and doesn't use your soul like all the other ones in Story Chaos. And I guess the only other important thing to note is just be careful against PBO, because you need to have the token that the grade 1 plays, so that when you ride the grade 2, you can retire that same token to call out 2 tokens. If not, if you're playing against PBO, you'll have to play something else out, because they can ride Blaster Dark and actually retire your token, and then you might not be able to go into this and actually get the tokens for it. And of course, we're playing a copy of the Lianorn from the trial deck here, because she has the first ability here that says when you ride upon her, she also counts as the R version. So, as mentioned, this follows many of the philosophies of the Multi list. So we're playing 3 copies here of the trial deck Lianorn, as well as 4 copies of the set 6 Lianorn, which has an additional ability. But whenever you ride over this Lianorn with this Lianorn, it counts as a persona ride. Then we have ourselves 4 copies of Clapping Dragon from the trial deck, and then a singular copy of the Order, Happy Dreaming Fiesta from set 6. So we already ran over the trial deck Lianorn. She does have another skill where if she is boosted, she gets 5k, so you can actually play this on Rearguard Circle if you need to. But the triple rare version here from set 6 is Grand March of Bloom Lianorn. So this has an additional skill where it loses the rearguard skill as well as the persona ride skill, but it also says instead on Vanguard Circle, act once per turn, you can counterblast 1, draw 1 card, choose a card from your hand and call it to a rearguard circle or discard it. So this helps you, somewhat plus for the cost of 1 counterblast, so you can actually have a better chance of actually filling out your board. And the reason we're playing so many of these is because we want a persona ride. Persona writing is good, gives 10k, makes Lianorn a lot more threatening. It also lets you draw a card, but also more importantly, it helps you fill out soul, which you need to do every single turn, otherwise you just don't do anything. There are some decks where if they can't do what they're designed to do, they just become vanilla, and you might as well be playing like a deck that has no effects. However, Lianorn is sort of beyond that, where she doesn't even get to be vanilla, she just does nothing if you can't really fulfill her conditions. We'll talk about that in a bit, but those conditions being having a full board, at least the back 3. You can make do with just one rear guard, although that's obviously not optimal. But that is why we're playing 8 Lianorns in all, and it is not just because I really like Lianorn. Next we've got here the Clapping Dragon from the trial deck. This is a very simple grade 3 that says when placed on a front row rear guard circle from hand, if your back row has 3 or more units, you can counterblast 1, draw 1 card, and if your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, this unit gets 10k until the end of the turn. So it becomes a nice 23k attacker. Using that with any basic booster makes him a nice 31k attacker, which is a pretty decent number to hit, and also lets you draw a card. And that's basically it. We just use this to draw cards and have a nice strong attacker. Unfortunately, it is useless at the end of that turn. I'm going into the next one because he loses the 10k and he just kind of sits there. It is still 13. 13 plus 8 is still 21, is an okay number to swing in. Your opponent can't intercept with that, but that's about it. But once we play him, he is a really nice attacker. You also have to just remember that you can't really use him. You can use him to draw cards, but you can't get his second effect to get more power until your opponent is on grade 3. Last card we're playing here is the Happy Dreaming Fiesta here. This is a pretty solid order from set 6. This says if you have a Vanguard with Lianorn in its card name, you can play this with Counterblast 1. Look at the top 7 cards of your deck, choose up to 2 grade 1 or less unit cards, call them to rear guard circle, and shuffle your deck. So this is just really good in a pinch, especially against certain matches. If you get matched up with like Gravidia or something that just heavily controls your board, this allows you to really easily get out 2 cards. It's also a card that lets you, in combination with this, automatically fill out your back row. So this can just automatically give you what you need at the cost of playing a card and counterblasting 1. We're only playing 1 of these because if we don't fight against those heavily controlled matchups, we really don't need this at all. So it's just kind of like, if I get it, great. But if I don't need it, then goodbye. I can discard it for Lianorn's skill or something like that, because it unfortunately you don't really want to call out grade 1s. I guess you can call this out late game if you don't have anything like in your front row. You can call this out to call some grade 1s to try and swing in the front row, assuming your back row is full. But in general, this is nice for filling it out your back row when you really need it in a pinch. You might even be able to mulligan for this if you're going up against something that'll wipe out your board, so you can just clap back with it. Alright, so this is probably a first for, I think, any deck profile I've done in this video, since I've never done anything like Bastion or anything like that. But we're only playing 4 grade 2s. That's it. End of story. Nothing else, just these 4 Creed Assaults. So, Creed Assault is supposed to be support for Flagberg. He infamously, when he was printed, the hollow version of it, the copy of it that you might want to actually use as a misprint, where for its first skill, here it says if your rear guard did not stand by a card effect this turn, this unit cannot attack. So that means if you just play him and try to swing in with him, he's useless. You have to have something that stands up by its own ability or by another ability in order for this guy to even be able to attack. But on the hollow version, it says if your rear guard did stand by a card effect this turn, this unit cannot attack. So it was a bit confusing. You can't get a nice hollow foiling of this card, or you can, but you'll just have to constantly explain to everyone how the effect works. But in any case, this becomes live with Lianorn's skill very easily because she stands the back row units that were used in order to boost her. So then you can restand them, allow this guy to actually attack, and then be able to use them to boost him to attack, which is pretty decent because whenever he attacks a Vanguard, he gets 10k, making him 20. plus a booster is 28, which is a very good number to swing towards. The reason I'm saying that is that, you know, if your opponent is grade 3 or grade 4 even, they're 13k. If they want to guard this, typically most people just use a trigger to guard with, which gives them a maximum power of 28. But unfortunately with this, they'll have to use more than that, at least unless they have a front trigger, or the effect front trigger, I should say. But we only play 4 of these, and basically our front lines are just consisted of this and the Clapping Dragon, and that's about it. So the grade 1s, as you probably would have guessed, are where the whole rest of the deck goes and where the majority of the cards are. We're putting ourselves 4 copies of the Stepping Calflex Salvia here, and then we're playing 4 copies of the Triple R from set 6, performing Petal Diantha here. We are playing 1 copy of, let's put you in between the ladies here, of, it's an FFR, so I can't really read his name, but it's a saxophone guy. And then 1 copy of Adhesive Thread Monster Acta Sticky. And then finally, you know, 3 PGs, 1 of the new PG Blitz order. So, Salvia here is one of the main cards when it comes for Lianorn, and as I mentioned, this is the card that you can combine with the order, because this says, when this unit is placed on rearguard circle, if your Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, you may call a plant token to rearguard circle. So this means if you hit this and another grade 1 from your deck with the order, you can play those 2 grade 1s, and then this will activate, because you have to be on Lianorn to use that order, and then you will call out another rearguard that you can boost with, automatically filling out your back row. In general, this is really good because you can also combo it with the performing Petal Diantha. She says when this unit is placed on rearguard circle from hand, you can't use it from the order, or you can't cycle her, like use one of her to bring back another one of her. Your Vanguard is grade 3 or greater. You can counterblast 1, choose a grade 3 or less card from your drop, and call it to rearguard circle. Then she also has a nice ability where you have 2 or more grade 1 or less rearguards. This unit gets 5k, so she becomes 13k, which helps Lianorn get a lot of good numbers. So we're playing 4 of those, and 4 of the Sylvia, because we want them to basically be able to very easily, either through the order or through you playing the Anthem, get a full back row. You can play 1 card, bring this back, get a token, boom, full board. And that's basically the gist of this, is to just use these guys as an engine to make sure you always have 3 boosters for Lianorn, and you can always swing in, go burr. I have here 1 copy of the Adhesive Thread Monster Acta Sticky here. This is very simple, it just says act on rearguard circle once per turn, counterblast 1, retire 2 of the rearguards, draw a card, this guy gets 5k. So pretty obvious, this can get 5k, it's an X skill, so I can play this earlier if I want to rush. Also, it also lets you eat up some tokens that are maybe taking your space in case you're playing one of those matches that don't control your board and you have those extra tokens. You can eat them up, get an extra card and a 13k booster, or even attacker if you really need to, and then play out your other cards if you'd like. So that's really all this is for. It's just some board cleanup, some little bit of power, and some draw. So we got here the Congratulatory Performance Secuse, which is pretty Lianorn specific support from set 6. It is a triple rare, but I managed to get the FFR, so we're playing mainly 1 copy because of the fact of that, but it is our one way of sort of using it for removal. So this says when this unit boosts a Vanguard, you can Soul Blast 1, choose one of your opponent's grade 2 or less rearguards, not be an attack, move it to guard and circle, and if it cannot be moved, this unit gets 5k until the end of the turn. So that means if you select something, I believe with like resist or anything like that, and it can't move, then you just get a 10k booster. Otherwise, this allows you to remove annoying targets on your opponent's board. It is pretty restricted in that it's only grade 2 or less, so you can't, for example, snipe an Esper Idea or anything like that, but it is a nice way to remove things. It is unfortunately very costly, so I don't often use this card. I originally wanted to put this in so I can get rid of things like Buka Burrito and again the Esper Idea, but unfortunately it's only for grade 2 or less. But nonetheless, it's still pretty useful for just sniping some grade 1s or some annoying grade 2s your opponent has on board. It does give them, I believe, a 5k shield if you do so, because you are moving it to the Guardian Circle, so it is going to guard. But, you know, you can very easily swap this out for another adhesive sticky. I just wanted to play this because, again, removal, but also it's an MFR. Typically, I don't spend too much time with the PGs because they're, you know, always the same thing, but, you know, playing 3 of the Custodial Dragon just because they're from set 6, and I don't have any of the other ones before set 6. But this just says when it's placed on Guardian Circle, choose one of your units cannot be hit for a battle. And if your hand has 2 or more cards, you discard a card. If you have 1 or less cards, you don't. Then we're playing here the Blitz Order, which counts as a Sentinel. You can only play 4 Sentinels in your deck, which is why we're playing 3 in one of these. And this basically says the same exact thing. The only difference is that it is a Blitz Order, and also if your opponent has Triple Drive as an ability, you can play this without paying the cost, which is to discard 1. So unlike this PG, if you have 1 or less cards, you will have to discard or you cannot use this. But the reason that you'll see this being played a lot is just that it is a Blitz Order that counts as a PG. What that means is that you can use this to get around a lot of guard restricts that are out there. So a lot of things that ask you to, when it says that if your opponent were to call 2 or more cards to Guardian Circle from hand, if they were to call a card to Guardian Circle from hand, they have to use 2 or more. This allows you to get around that because you don't call this to Guardian Circle. You just play it in the order zone and then you activate the ability to protect your Vanguard, surpassing the entire Guardian Circle. And that's kind of the main reason why this is played, aside from the fact that it's also free against, grade 4 decks, but I don't know if that really comes up, aside from Nirvana and Prison. I think are really the only grade 4 decks that I really played. Magnolia doesn't see much play. Bastion, I guess, is still existing. Bruce is kind of weird because people also play grade 3 Bruce now, but in any case, if you can't pick up one of these because they're fucking impossible to get at the moment until they get reprinted in some sort of easy way, you can just play Custodial Dragon, you'll be fine. Triggers are pretty simple. We're playing 4 of the best critical trigger here ever in Media Palmera. Then I'm playing 4 of another critical trigger. 4 of the effect draws. 3 of the effect draws, 4 of the Kiwi Heal, and 1 of the Bless Flavor Overtrigger. We're playing Bless Favor as opposed to any other Overtrigger because the powering up 2 rear guards with 100 million powers isn't as great as being able to get a crit on your Lianorn, who can break through anything, which is really good. Drawing 2 cards is very good. In general, this does everything, helps out Lianorn a lot. You can even heal with this. Heals, I'm using the Kiwi because he looks dope. I'm not really used to using any of the new effect heals just yet. I might start running these in the future, but for now we're just going to stick with 4 of these. I can't really think of any one of them where specifically Lianorn would need it. I guess maybe the critical one, but I always say that because you don't want to get hit with crits, and there's a lot of those running around. We're playing 3 draw triggers here, the effect draws, because we want to draw cards. We play a lot of cards from hand, we want to fill up our hand. We're only playing 3 of these because we do have triple drive. We can kind of run the risk of decking out, not necessarily, but more than likely we just want to be able to get crits because when you have triple drive, you want to get crits, which is why we're playing 8 of these. We're not playing any of the effect crits because honestly we do not need them. It'll kind of be a bit of a detriment. While getting the soul is nice, losing a booster is not. And I already have very easy ways to fill up my board, so I really don't need the effect critical. You are more than welcome to go ahead and play it, but it's really not needed. So in general, the game plan for this deck is pretty simple. For your mulligan, this actually looks pretty perfect here. You want to grab a Lianorn to be able to Persona Ride over. Ideally, if you can grab the other one, that would be great. While this one lets you draw, you can Persona Ride into the other one and then Persona Ride into this one if you draw it afterwards. If you Persona Ride into this one and then have this one, you can play it out of Rearguard Circle, but you can't Persona Ride over it. So that's why I'm saying that. Getting in the Antha is great. We'll probably put one back and probably PG, depending on the matchup here, but getting the Salvia is also very good turn 1 because we can very easily discard this, bring it back later on when it's actually useful for us, which is very good. Yeah, sure, get another PG for a PG, why not? And from there, you know, it's business as usual. You go into your Aurora, grade 1, you get your plant token there, ideally, if you can discard the Salvia, that'll be great. Then you can go into your grade 2 Aurora. Depending on the matchup that you're facing, you can use these to place the tokens. If you want to get a little bit more aggressive and you have the hand to fill out these 2 circles with rear guards, you can do that. If not, you can go a little bit more passive like this. Another note about the tokens is that they're very, very useful against things like prison, for example, because when these go or would go to prison, they actually get removed, so your opponent doesn't actually get to put them in prison. So you have, for example, no fear of going up against prison and your opponent using their, you know, Transformer card to lock them away or whatever the case may be, or if you can get these out before Pure Light, or keep them on after Pure Light is coming down, then, you know, you can give them this and they don't get the +2 from that, which is nice. Then, you know, you either rush or not, but either way, after that, you can go into your Lianorn here. Let's say we did rush and they decide to kill off that token, and I don't know, they have retire at this point. Well, that is fine, because we'll use our counterblast here to play the anthem, and we can bring back here the Salvia, which then gives us a token. And just like that, we have a full board for Lianorn to be able to boost, which is, this combination here gives you pretty good numbers, and this is the ideal back row you'd like to use here. Let me see if I can let you guys actually see Salvia. There we go, I actually see the card that I'm talking about here. So this combination is really good because this is 8 plus 5 plus 8 plus she gets an additional 5 because you have these 2 which allow her to get powered up. So this is actually 13 plus Lianorn's 13 means you're swinging in for a combination of 39, which is a very, very strong number to hit. You can go in, hit your triple drive, and stack like hell. I swear I didn't do that on purpose, and get a bunch of triggers. One of the other things that you can do is that, considering that you have triple drive and you kind of mill out your deck a little bit, healing is pretty nice. So you can very easily not worry too much about taking damage, which lets you then use your counterblast to bring your cards back. If I search my deck here, the ideal play would be able to have this guy and the Clapping Dragon, because you can then restand these and then attack with pretty good swings here. Because if you use the Clapping Dragon, if they are on grade 3, this becomes a nice 31k, whereas this on this side is actually 33. Very, very good numbers to hit. Obviously, those are the 2 biggest weaknesses for Lianorn, is that she needs this back row. Even though we can achieve this very easily, if you're going up against something like Gravidia, they will be able to get rid of that very easily every single turn, so you want to end the game as quickly as possible. Likewise, she doesn't really have a lot of good attacking options here. We focused on trying to get as many grade 1s to be able to boost her, making her the main threat, but we kind of skipped out on these rear guards here, which is why all we have is the Clapping Dragon and the Creedasol. And honestly, there's not really too much else that's available for Lianorn right now. She gets a lot better cards in sets 7 that allow you to have better front row attackers. At the moment, this is really the best that we can do. The only other cards that I can think of are like the Rena Bear, which is the Rhino that gives the thing behind you boost. That's, you know, a decent way to go. And I know a lot of people like to play the Ursula and the Kusi to move things around, but that kind of goes around the idea of getting huge boosters for Lianorn, which again, she doesn't necessarily need. She just needs to be able to boost with whatever you got, and she'll still be a threat. You're gonna have to jump through hoops to get all these big numbers. Plus, the Ursula can't really do much by herself because she can't protect herself. She can only protect what's in front, so that doesn't really help you a lot unless it's, you know, something like Buffsaga, but Buffsaga doesn't target, so that doesn't even matter. So in general, I do think that this list is way better. Rather than trying to constantly protect your board from everything, I think it's better to just let it go and then be able to get back on track next turn with a good clap back. And that does it here for Lianorn. She's a very fun deck from set 6. I've been thinking about it a lot, just because, I don't know, I feel like I have some sort of weird thing that drives me towards Stochea. I know Stochea very well, and I've been wanting to see what she can do ever since she's been announced. I think she is fine. She's definitely nothing outstanding. She doesn't do anything too crazy. Really, it's just her being able to swing in for big numbers, maybe checking some triggers. Other than that, unfortunately, she kind of falls a little bit flat, which is why I don't think she's the biggest threat. But this definitely pushes her to her full potential. Once again, I'll have the Milte article down in the description below. I feel like I've gone over most of the points. If not, I've ignored some of the other points that he made just so you can read the article for yourself. I'll see if I can go over some of the other decks in set 6. We'll definitely be going over Heroes and Barrel Magus. I'm thinking I might cover Magnolia this time around. I know we skipped that out in sets, I believe 4 and 5, just because I've always been in a weird spot. And I think I'll try to see if I can cover some of the other decks that I typically don't play, just sort of going over them a little bit quicker like we've been doing for the Shaman King stuff. But in any case, let me know what you thought about the video down below. And until next time, take care of yourself, play Vanguard, and have yourself a damn good one.